This channel is called Lukewarm Reviews. I'm really glad to see you guys today. I'm continuing my series on my favorite Sofubi because I am a poor young person and I can't always afford to do haul videos for you guys, but I want to keep talking about toys. Check out my first one if you haven't. It's about my top 10 favorite small Sofubi molds, and I explain a little bit of why I'm doing this, but basically I just want to start a conversation within the community, also provide a resource for new people. If you haven't seen the first one, just before we get started, this list is not in order. It's just my top 10 in any random order I feel like. Also, if you see images here, I have the artist's explicit permission to use them, and if you don't, it's not because they said no. In fact, nobody has said no so far. Some people have just not gotten back to me. So, let's get started. Why don't we? How does that sound? Real quick, I just want to address, I feel like I didn't really talk about this in my first video, but all of the stuff that I'm into is very new, and I know that. And there's a really, really long history to Sofubi, but there are kind of two main, like, revivals of it, I guess. There are not revivals, but there's the original Sofubi artists way back in the 70s. Video Vomit has a really, really excellent video about the history of Sofubi. Go check that out. He knows more than I, as a lot of people do. But so there's that, and then there's this recent resurgence that has kind of been coming up since the 90s, and that's almost exclusively the extent of my knowledge. I know like some names from the old tradition. I know like Bullmark and stuff, but I don't know very much about it or the market or anything like that. So they're two very huge and very amazing and different kind of movements of Sofubi. So I'm talking about mostly new stuff. So let's get started. It feels appropriate to start, oh, and just the parameters. So this mid-size, I'm typically saying retail between $75 and $150-ish. I know some of these kind of skew over those lines, but I don't care. First one, I'm going to talk about the Kaos Man by Realhead. Realhead is the best. I don't know a lot about Realhead. I know a lot of people that do, though. One of my buddies, Mad Chill Mitch on Instagram, he is one of the foremost Realhead collectors I have ever seen. So go follow him, go check him out. But by the Kaos Man, I'm really referring to so many different combinations that Realhead has done. Realhead also is run by a dude named Maury. He has been in the scene for forever. It's kind of like nobody knows for sure exactly, but like Realhead, Bounty Hunter, and Secret Base are kind of known as like the godfathers of the current like neo Sofubi scene from way back in the 90s. But yeah, so he's been at it for forever. He's had a bunch of different molds, but I would argue that the Kaos Man has become kind of the iconic Realhead thing. But he also puts a bunch of different heads on it, a bunch of different arms. He collabs with a bunch of different people, particularly Punk Trunkers, Gokodo, and Uamu. Those and Realhead, those four studios, they collab all the time because I think they know each other really well, and it's are located close to each other. I don't know any of them personally, but I know a lot of people that do. And I've seen t-shirts where they call themselves the Game of Hope. So I guess that's Game of Hope. You can find a lot of collabs on this figure between those people, but there's also, I mean, Realhead puts all kinds of stuff on this. There's one by Brandt Peters, the Astrobat. I've seen a Puss head on this guy. I've seen Paul Kaiju heads. Also collabs a lot with Adam A. Amarashura on this figure. But my favorite of the Kaos Men is definitely the Barros Man, which is a collab with Gokodo with this amazing bear head on it. It's so excellent. I love bears, and it's just so badass and so cool. I love the Kaos Man just all together because he reminds me of you know, Power Rangers, Beetleborgs, Kamen Rider, a lot of that shit that I loved when I was a kid. So that's my first one for this list. That's the Kaos Man. Let's keep on rolling, why don't we? Let's talk about the AAAAAND by Devil's Head Productions. If you've seen my Taste of the Orient Sofubi video, which if you haven't, you should, go watch it. That's where I picked up this guy. This figure is so sick, and until I saw it in person, I didn't really appreciate the character and detail that it has in it. It has this wood grain to it, so it really feels like an evil spirit of the woods or whatever. It's a beautiful, beautiful figure. And this one also glows in the dark. I kind of have decided, hey Bailey, hey, chill. I kind of have decided that if I collect anything like Sofubi wise, it's going to be glow in the dark because I love that stuff. And this is just super quality. That is the AAAAAND by Devil's Head Productions. I think a very underrated figure. Moving on, let's talk about the Demon Craft by Zero Plus Toys, I think. This is a relatively new figure within the past like year or so, I think. There's only been limited number of releases, but it's super cool. It's got exactly that quality to it that I like, which I talked about in my last video, which is where it has, and so does, you know what, so does AAAAND. It's got this, it's really clean and it's sort of symmetrical, so it's not overly grotesque, but it's still sort of edgy and creepy and kind of devious. So that is the Demon Craft by Zero Plus. I love that guy. Moving on. This is Stingy Jack by Brandt Peters. I'm still waiting to hear back from Brandt, so I'm not sure if there's going to be pictures here or not, but we'll see. I love everything Brandt does. It's so whimsical and macabre and kind of like, it's just, it reminds me of like old-timey carnivals and freak shows and weird stuff like that. I have a couple of Brandt figures, but I don't have a Stingy Jack yet. I really want one though. It's just spooky and weird in all the right ways. I love Halloween and I love shit like this. It's so cool. Moving on, let's talk about the Darts by Pop Soda and Restore. This is from a series called Jungle Fever, I think, and there's a frog named Fog, but this is like a tiger named Darts. This guy is super cool. I saw these at like the first decon I ever went to, and I wanted one, but I didn't know anything about the community at that point. I didn't know if this was going to be a thing I would stick with, and I didn't want to spend that much money. Not that this is expensive, but at my first decon I literally only bought like one thing. But yeah, this guy is super sick. This one I bought off eBay. I got a really, really great deal on it. It's got a really, really slick paint job, but all of the releases are very cool, very high quality vinyl. It's got a really badass character to it, and also a lot of them come with this cape, which is just, come on, that's so sick. That's so sick. Come on. So that's Darts by Pop Soda and Restore. Moving on, let's talk about, oh y'all, let's talk about some MVH. Why don't we? Let's talk about MVH. So Mutant Vinyl Hardcore, I would argue Mutant Vinyl Hardcore and Paul Kaiju is between those two for the biggest Western Sofubi designers. Like, straight up, it's those two. My favorite mid-sized MVH piece is the Bernie. This guy, I mean, there's only so much I can say about like my style before it's got like, it's clean, it's symmetrical, it's sinister and wacky and funny, and it's got a lot of character to it. Also MVH vinyl. I don't have anything of his yet, but I will very soon. It's all just like super high quality. He does the most amazing like glitters and stuff, and his paint jobs are always impeccable. So that's the Bernie by MVH. Definitely go follow on Instagram and everything if you want to follow one of the biggest names in Sofubi in the whole world. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Boogie by Cure. I'm also waiting back to hear back from Cure, so I'm not sure if there's gonna be photos here or not. But the Boogie is a character that I almost bought when I was at Taste of the Orient. They had a couple there, but it's very cool. It's got it's like the proportions of this character remind me of like classic cartoons for some reason, but it's very macabre, so it's like a cross between like horror-y stuff and cartoony stuff, and I just love the way it looks. I love the aesthetic. So that is the Boogie by Cure. Moving on up. Let's talk about the Nagura, or the King Nagura by Konatsu, or Konatsuya. I got this one, if you've seen my video, at the Konatsuya exhibition a couple of weeks ago, I don't even remember. But Konatsuya was the first Sofubi designer that I really got into. She's incredible. She's still one of my absolute favorites. And the Nagura is incredible. It's like cute and classic and sinister, and it's just the right size. I love like the back spikes. Kanamesie is the absolute best, and that's the Nagura. Last two. This one is gonna be the Itsu Man by Punk Drunkers. This guy, let me tell you, this guy is an absolute grail for me. It's a little frustrating seeing how much these get scalped on the secondary market. I'll probably do a whole separate video about like where to buy Sofubi and how the market works with my minimal knowledge about it. I don't know if I'm entitled to make that kind of video, but I probably will, so we'll see how that goes. But the Itsu is sort of like the Eastern equivalent of like how Kaws shit gets so overhyped and scalped all over the world. It just is really annoying because I think it's such an incredible character, and it's so funny and zany and wacky, and it just like, I think it fits like my sense of humor precisely, and I think it's really, really cool, and I really want one, but they're impossible to get. They're impossible to get unless you find them at retail at a convention, which I hope to do sometime in the next couple of years, because otherwise you're going to be paying literally $1,000 for one on eBay, which is horse shit. But yeah, Punk Drunkers, they're incredible. Initially they were a clothing brand, I think, but now they do Sofubi, and it's all beautiful and funny, and I really, really love it. Props to those guys. Quality shit. That's the Itsu Man by Punk Drunkers. And the last one I'm going to talk about, the Canadian Hairless by Redhot Style. I talked about Redhot Style in my last video. They're one of my favorites. Their stuff is super hard to find, but it's super cool. I love this weird, goofy looking little cat monster. I love hairless cats in real life, and I think this thing has a lot of character and is very funny. And also their paint jobs are always just very on point, very cool, a lot of metallic-y kind of stuff. So that's that. That's the Canadian Hairless. That's Redhot Style. And there we go. That's 10, y'all. That's my top 10 favorite mid-sized Sofubi pieces. As you can tell, we're slowly decreasing in the amount of these pieces that I have. Next is going to be my top 10 large size Sofubi pieces, and I own none of those so far. So that video will just be all images up here next to my head. But I hope you guys are having fun. I'm having fun. Let me know in the comments. Make your own list. What's your top 10 favorite mid-size Sofubi? Holla at me, guys. Holla at me. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, share with your friends, tell your neighbors, and you know what? Treat yourself today to like a soda or something when you might not usually get it. Because life is short, and I'm just here to talk about movies and toys. Love you guys. You're great.